Hi, I'm looking for a few crazy people who will think hyperthetically instead of hypothetically. Hypo means below, and hypothetical thinking is thinking below the thesis or below the question, looking at all the possible answers that could come from a certain question. For example, what's the best color? Is the best color red or is it blue? And we can go back and forth trying to answer this question. We can go into all sorts of details, but it's all about that question, whatever that question is. And that question has a thesis or an assumption that's usually not stated. But I want to look for anyone who is willing to have a hyperthetical discussion. Hyper is above, so it's going outside of the question that's being asked. And hyperthetical thinking questions the question. And it goes above and beyond and outside the box of possible answers within that question. And this is kind of strange. In fact, people don't even use this word, hyperthetical. It's because ever since Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, we have been locked in completely hypothetical thinking, which is we ask this question and we're looking for all these different answers. And there have been people who have questioned the question, but usually those people get eliminated or they get dismissed or they get called crazy because we're trying to answer this question. And so I want to look at this question of the 3i-ATLAS, the third i-ATLAS. Most people are asking, is it just a meteor, asteroid, comet, or is it something else? But I want to look at this question and look at it in a different way. Here's the things that are being discussed about this 3i-ATLAS, and probably you've heard it, right? It's not from our solar system. It's traveling at 130,000 miles an hour, but it's also speeding up and slowing down. It's also changed colors. It's emitting light. It's not emitting iron, which all comets do. And it is emitting carbon dioxide, which no comets or asteroids do. And the dates that it's crossing the orbits of different planets in our solar system are all on holy dates in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or Buddhism. So those are some of the things that have been observed. But I want to ask this question about how to read what is going on. Not what to read, but how to read it. And so I want to just kind of walk through the differences between hypo and hyperthetical. Hypothetical logic is below the thesis, and it's assuming that we know the right question to ask. For example, is the answer A or B? And it's thinking inside the box of that question. And it's reductive, deductive, or inductive thinking. It's reasoning from the thesis down to the conclusion. The goal is to prove or disprove the hypothesis. Now, hyperthetical logic is above and beyond that question. And it's using what Charles Peirce called abductive reasoning, which is going outside or above and beyond the possible answers, looking at things that might surprise us. Whereas deductive thinking and hypothetical thinking is trying to eliminate all surprises so that we can be sure of things. We can't say anything unless we're sure of it. But that's inside the box thinking. So this outside the box thinking is using abductive reasoning. It is reasoning with the goal to discover new possibilities. And people who have thought this way, hypothetical thinkers, Pythagoras and the Pythagoreans, who were all killed, but he was the first one that came up with the term philosophy to begin with. And he used logic to go beyond what we think we see and observe and beyond our usual dogmatic, conventional answers. Parmenides was familiar with Pythagoras and also was hyperthetical. Then it got taken over, as I mentioned, by these folks, these four. Yeshua, also known as Jesus, came as a hyperthetical thinker, and he questioned the questions. He was asked 102 questions in the Gospels and answered maybe 3 or 4 of them. And mostly he questioned the questions, because every question has an assumption. Buddha also did this. Gandhi also did this. Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy. As you can see, hypothetical thinking can be dangerous. So I'm looking for some courageous people who are willing to just go, hey, you know what? We're not going to talk literally about the dogmas. We're going to question the dogmas and question our ways of thinking, even if those ways of thinking might be 2,500 years old or older. So here's one example of a hypothetical question. Do aliens prefer coffee or tea? But hyper-thetical thinking might say, what else might they prefer to drink? Do we know that they even like coffee or tea? Or maybe some aliens prefer coffee, others prefer tea. Maybe some aliens prefer wine. So it's just looking beyond this question. But if we just get locked in this question, we are bound to the assumption of the question, which is aliens prefer coffee or tea. Another example of this would be, is 3i-ATLAS coming to attack us and be our villain, or to save us and be our hero? But a hypothetical question might be, what if 3i-ATLAS is not coming as a villain or a hero? Then how might we best interact with these aliens? It's like arguing over whether our parents are coming over for dinner on Christmas, and we just keep arguing, but we don't do anything to prepare for that if that were the case. Those are a couple of examples. And so my invitation is to say, who would like to be on this Dream Team welcoming committee? To talk about, well, if they do come, who's going to greet them? Who's going to open the door? What might we do? Do we want to have someone to give them food and drink? Do we want to have anyone to entertain them? Music and stories. And might there be some sort of games? And what sort of games might we play? Every culture has these really famous games of wit, from the Mayan games of or Pak to Pak, or games like the Battle of the Trees, or in Druid culture, they would play this game called Gwydbil, which was a game of wits, and it's a game that requires thinking in 5 dimensions. And so I'm looking for people interested in going, well, what if we come and we're going to host them? Like, how are we going to host them? What are the intergalactic sort of customs for hosting and being hosted, right? We could possibly look at Homer's Odyssey as a guide for the Xenia. Xenia is this code for hosting and being hosted. Odyssey shows us a lot of different options for how to be a good host and how not to be a good host. For example, cannibalizing or killing your guests is usually not great, but there's also rules for how to be a guest. And it seems so many of our problems are coming from not understanding how to host and how to guest, and all this discussion and controversy worldwide over hosting and hosting aliens and being guests as aliens, and how to be a good guest and how to be a good host, and what are the different ways we can violate this. Well, let's just consider this, and who do we want? Who do we want to welcome them if this is the case? There's a lot of evidence that they are coming. So we're going to leave behind the hypothetical and just kind of say, how might we have interactions with these guests? And if nothing else, it can be a really entertaining and enjoyable conversation just about hosting and guesting in general, which the ancient Greeks considered the most important laws. The most important laws were about how guests were guests and how hosts were hosts. So if this interests you at all, please reply in the comments. And I'm going to be hosting a few different conversations live. And if you are interested in that, just reply that you are interested. Just reply with "I'm in" or "hypothetical," and we'll have, if nothing else, a really enjoyable conversation. And if this sounds crazy to you, then that's great. But if this sounds interesting to you, if this resonates with you in any way, please respond, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. Also, if you know someone who might and you are sure that you don't, please send this on to them, and let's have a beautiful, fun, and maybe even funny conversation. And by the way, don't take anything that I said literally, because I'm not speaking hypothetically here. I'm speaking hyper-thetically. Happy Equilux, and let's see, maybe even the Pleiadians will show up. Who knows? Ciao.